Oh, okay, so this is a little bit of additional commentary on the whole PZ Myers Atheism Plus thing. I've got a stinking... Oh, my head. I've had a headache for a couple of weeks now. I had a bad cold. And Jesus, but I'm going to have to do the boom thing. So here, it's going to be a quiet, a suppressed boom. Okay, boom! Boom, ladies and gentlemen. Once again, pulling the pin on the purple hand grenade. And just to clear it up, the body of the hand grenade is purple, but the pin is also purple as well, in case you were wondering. Of the purple pin of the there you go, the purple pin of the purple hand grenade of free speech, civil rights, and the chalk streams. Why not the chalk streams of the Lincolnshire Wolds? And why not? Because if, like me, you're English and you've ever looked out there and thought there doesn't seem to be anything particularly unique or special about the geology of England, right? It's all just, we haven't got a fucking Grand Canyon, have we? Or a Giant's Causeway or anything really special. What you have got are chalk streams, actually. There are a little over 200 chalk streams in the world. I wonder what percentage of English people know this. Probably like 0.001%. There are a little over 200 chalk streams in the world, and about 160 of them are in England. So how about that for a little fact? But I wanted to talk about, not about chalk streams, although I've kind of drifted onto that a little bit there. I want to talk about PZ Myers and 2 points that I wanted to make with regard to the recent exchange that cropped up. By the way, people say to me, why do you want a second channel? This is why, because it means I cannot put this out on my first channel. I have to structure it a bit more, edit some bits in. I want a channel where I can just talk, where I can just add some additional content, and it doesn't matter if it's not quite as well polished. Right, that's why. That's one of the reasons why I want this second channel. And I don't get why some people dress that as some kind of hardship. Like, oh my God, I'm having to subscribe to 2 channels. As if there's an amount of maintenance that needs to be taken place. To be honest, I could have 50 fucking channels. And other than having to click the subscribe button 50 times, that would all you would have to do. And if sequentially I released each video on the next one of the 50 channels, it wouldn't look any different to you. You'd still only see the same amount of things come in on your subscriptions inbox. It wouldn't require any extra effort or any imposition on you whatsoever. So it surprises me that some people are bothered by that, really. Anyway, PZ Myers, these are the 2 points that I want to make. The first one is that, as you know, he's very much got this line with dictionary atheism and this idea that actually, no, atheism does tell you more. It does tell you something about... I've heard him give this so many times, and maybe I haven't gone through this, but I understand, although I disagree with him fundamentally, I understand where he's coming from, which is effectively he's viewing atheism really in his society as in contrast to Christianity, I think. And he's saying as a result of that, I mean, that obviously isn't how it works. It isn't atheism or Christianity, but that's how he's viewing it. And effectively, I think what he's saying is, if you're a Christian, you believe X, which again isn't true, actually. There's so many different Christians. Some Christians are pro-abortion, some Christians are anti-abortion. We know statistically there are certain things that you would expect, and statistically more Christians are against abortion than non-Christians, than atheists, right? But nevertheless, let's, for the sake of argument, if you're Christian, you believe all these different things. So what he's saying is, I think, if you're not a Christian, clearly that tells us something qualitatively different about you, which is that we would presume you are less likely to believe these certain things. Now, my contention there is that still doesn't really tell you anything. I mean, it does mean that being an atheist, knowing somebody's an atheist qualitatively gives you a different impression of them than if they told you, I'm a devout Muslim or I'm a devout Christian. But it's rather in terms of a mission rather than anything else. It doesn't tell you what that person's views is. All it means is we don't know for certain what that person's views are. Right? And the interesting thing with this is that in other circumstances it appears that PZ Myers can see straight through that. He understands that. And the reason why, an event took place recently called OrbitCon. I say an event, it was a non-event of an event. But what had happened is, Free Thought blogs used to include PZ Myers, lots of other bloggers. They always had quite a long list of bloggers, and a few of them formed a hardcore social justice core that included Stephanie Svan, Greta Christina, Jason Thibault, and a few others. And all of those, apart from PZ Myers, decided to go and and formed their own blogging network called The Orbit. If you want to check it out, it's www. I started fucking again. I wouldn't be able to do that on my main channel. www.the-orbit.net. Right. If you go there, you'll see that it's a rather tragic place. Most of the bloggers haven't blogged anything since 2016 or the middle of 2017. It's become a bit of a ghost town, but they've decided to have this online convention/conference, right? And it's all been pretty desperate stuff. I've tuned into a couple of live events, and there's like 8 viewers, 9 viewers, and I'm fucking one of them. And at like 24 hours later, they've had 40 views. I mean, you know, and they're talking about this, the movement, about why their movement is still fresh, and Jesus, they at one point these people were going to conferences that were attracting hundreds and thousands of people, and now they can't fill a fucking phone box online when people don't even have to fucking buy a ticket and travel anywhere. That's how bad it's got. But anyway, at the end of it, they had a summing up where they're all saying about what a wonderful event it's been, right? And it formed this hangout. PZ Myers was in this hangout. And they started talking about David Silverman. If you don't know, David Silverman was the president of American Atheists. And they've dismissed him on the grounds of some sexual allegations, several sexual allegations, and also on the grounds of financial malfeasance, which as the organisation they've looked into, you'd have thought they'd have had some pretty good insight into that. So that is what has happened. And what had happened is PZ Myers mentioned this. And then he said, of course, David Silverman, and I'm listening to this, by the way, while I'm on my bike. Interestingly enough, cycling past some of the chalk streams of the Lincolnshire Wolds. And I'm listening to this on my bike, and he says, David Silverman, of course, has issued a statement denying all these allegations. Well, of course he would, wouldn't he? Right. Which effectively means, well, that's what a guilty person would do. And then somebody else pipes up and says, well, okay, just let me say, although I think David Silverman's guilty, he said, doesn't tell us anything. The statement that Silverman has issued doesn't tell us anything, because you would expect someone to issue one of those statements if they're guilty. They always do. But you'd also expect somebody to issue one of those statements if they're innocent. They always do. So actually it tells us we can't read anything into that. And they all agreed. They all seem to agree with that. Nobody fucking disagreed with that. And as I'm listening to this, I'm thinking, how in any way is this any different to comparing atheism with being part of a religion? Because again, we've got a choice X or Y. In terms of Silverman, X is guilty and Y is not guilty. Right. So yes, if Silverman releases a statement, you know, and it is, the fact that he's released a statement saying he's not guilty, or denying all these allegations, is significant, in as much as if he released the opposite statement and says, yeah, actually I admit to it all, then we know definitely X, guilt. Right? But because he issued the statement he did, it could be X or Y. But they accept that because he issued the statement he did, it could be X or Y, so it doesn't really tell us anything. It's exactly the same with this atheism, theism thing, because in some instances it may be true that if you know somebody is of a particular religion, then you know X, right? Because they're an atheist, it could be X or Y. Now, clearly those two things are qualitatively different, but it still doesn't tell you anything about atheism, because atheism still has all those options open. All we've learnt is all options are open, right? And you can't take that and create some kind of moral grounding or moral compass for an organisation. All options open might be different to only some options being open, but it isn't the basis for a kind of ethical underpinning for your organisation. There, they can see it when it comes to that case with David Silverman, that kind of thing doesn't tell you anything. But for some reason, when it comes to atheism, all they can think is, well, that means that this person isn't a Christian, isn't a Muslim, and if they were a Christian or Muslim, we'd know some things for certain, even though you wouldn't. Right. Okay. That was the first thing. Second thing. A couple of people, more than a couple of people, made the comment, and this is something that I've cleared up in the past, but about 5 years ago now, so it's worth... And I agree with the comments that these people are making, which is why I want to mention it in video here. What they're saying is that the remit of an organisation is different to the definition of the thing itself. So they're talking about dictionary atheism and saying, yes, an atheist might be somebody who just lacks a belief in God. Well, that doesn't mean that an atheist organisation is just going to be about the lack of belief in God. And in fact, this is something that P.Z. Myers has caricatured it as. Well, so should atheist organisations just talk about why there isn't a God, right? No, of course they fucking shouldn't. What I'm saying is, let's apply the same rules as you would to anything. Any organisation. It doesn't matter whether it's classic car, the ones I've mentioned, classic car enthusiasm, basket weaving, real ale appreciation, right? Cycling, rambling, walking and going for walks in the country, right? Any of these things, right? Let's apply the same laws. British cycling, right, effectively takes a dictionary definition of cycling, but they do more than just have lectures on how to turn the pedals round on your bike or the different kinds of bike. Of course they do. They act as an advocacy organisation. The Ramblers Association acts as an advocacy organisation. You would expect a national classic car society to act as an advocacy association for classic car enthusiasts, sticking up for their rights. Maybe if classic cars don't need road tax, such as they don't in the United Kingdom, and the government was saying, no, these old prestige cars ought to have road tax, they might stand up for that. Right, or maybe if they suddenly were going to come under the emissions legislation that they've been exempted from, they'd stand up for that. So it doesn't matter what the organisation is, we accept that they deal with those issues that are explicitly relevant to their members. They deal with those issues that are relevant to those members when it explicitly relates to that which the organisation is about. Of course, I would expect an atheist organisation to do the same. So if the members of the atheist organisation are being persecuted within society or being treated in a second-rate manner in some way, not getting a voice in some particular public forum perhaps, on the grounds that they are atheists, all religious groups are getting a say but there's no atheist group getting a say, then absolutely that is part of the work that they should do because it explicitly relates to them being atheists. What P.Z. Myers wants to do is to go beyond that and effectively say, okay, so cycling has included, the work of British cycling has included the advocacy of cyclists, right, making sure cycle lanes get put in, maybe looking at the Sustrans network, sustainable transport, increasing the cycling infrastructure network around the United Kingdom. What he wants to do is go beyond that and say, hang on a minute, some cyclists are atheists. So if we're dealing with cyclists' issues, atheists' issues are cyclists' issues, right? Some cyclists are black, so black issues are cyclists' issues. Some cyclists are trans, so trans issues are cyclists' issues. So we should be campaigning for all these other things as well. I'm sure you could see how that's an entirely different thing. And nobody is suggesting that for British cycling. Nobody's suggesting that for the Ramblers Association or the Basket Weaving fucking Society or the Classic Car Enthusiasts Society. Nobody is suggesting it for all those other things. And what I'm saying is we shouldn't be suggesting it. Why are we treating an atheist movement any different? Of course an atheist movement will go beyond the bare definition of atheism as a lack of belief in God and will incorporate advocacy for atheists, but it's advocacy for atheists as fucking atheists, not advocacy for atheists as capitalists or advocacy for atheists as Nazis or as communists or as Native Americans, right, or as Pacific Islanders or any of these other fucking things. It's advocacy for atheists explicitly when they are atheists and those issues that affect them explicitly on the grounds that they are atheists. Now, fine. If you want to take a fucking intersectional perspective and say that there are some issues that affect black atheists on the grounds of them being both black and atheist at the same time, then that is relevant. But that is what intersectionality means. I've fucking banged this drum so many times now. Intersectionality means that intersection on the Venn diagram. It doesn't mean subsuming everybody else's circle into yours. Right. So if there are some issues that affect people on the grounds that they are black and atheist, then that is important. And you may have to deal with them separately to all the general atheist issues. But it doesn't mean that you take the rest of that black circle there, right? It's only the intersection that intersectionality is interesting. It doesn't mean that every black issue becomes an atheist issue, that every feminist issue becomes an atheist issue, that every Inuit issue becomes an atheist issue. I hope I've made the point that every cyclist, cyclists who are atheists. Well, okay, if there's an intersection of being a cyclist and being an atheist, maybe a cyclist organisation isn't allowing atheists in, then fine, that's something you're going to have to deal with. That is the intersection of being an atheist and a cyclist. It doesn't mean every fucking cyclist's issue in the world suddenly becomes relevant to an atheist organisation. Okay, that's it. That's what I wanted to say. Okay, I'm going to get back to spray painting my fence outside now. That's what I've been doing today. Bit of sunshine, rare in this part of the world.